car's brakes don't respond. Ava Lauren's foot slams the pedal to the floor. Nothing. The speedometer climbs. 60, 70, 85. Rain hammers the windshield as the bridge looms ahead, its guardrails thin as threads in the darkness. No. Her knuckles whiten on the steering wheel. She yanks it left. The tires scream. The car fishtails hydroplanes, and for one breathless second, she thinks she might make it. Then the guardrail explodes. Metal shrieks. Glass shatters. The world inverts. Water rushes through the broken windows, black and freezing, swallowing her scream. She claws at the seatbelt, lungs burning, but the pressure pins her down. Bubbles spiral upward as her vision darkens. Her last thought before unconsciousness, I'm going to die alone. 6 weeks earlier, Ava commanded a different kind of chaos. The Laurent Global boardroom stretched 40 feet of polished mahogany and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. 18 board members sat rigid in their chairs as Ava paced at the head of the table, her Louboutins clicking like a metronome. She wore power like a second skin. Tailored black suit, dark hair swept into a flawless bun, gray eyes that could dissect a quarterly report or a man's confidence with equal precision. Dr. Marcus Reeves, her lead scientist, stood at the presentation screen, his hands trembling slightly as he clicked to the next slide. As you can see, he said, voice tight, the Sentinel-7 artificial heart valves promising results in 97% of trial subjects. However, we've identified minor instability in 3% of cases. The valve's polymer coating degrades faster than projected under certain metabolic conditions. I'm recommending we delay the launch by 6 months for additional testing. Stop! Ava's voice cut through the room like a blade. She turned to face him fully. 6 months? Reeves swallowed. Yes, to ensure patient safety. 6 months costs us $42 million in delayed revenue. That's $42 million we've already spent in development, marketing, and FDA approval. She glanced at the board members, reading their faces. Anxiety, uncertainty, greed. How many people are currently on the transplant waiting list, Dr. Reeves? Approximately 4,000 patients nationwide need heart valve replacements. And how many will die waiting if we delay another 6 months? Reeves faltered. That's not a fair comparison. It's the only comparison that matters. Ava moved to the window, her silhouette framed against the city lights. 3% instability versus guaranteed deaths from waiting. The math is simple. We launch next month as scheduled. Victor Hale, her silver-haired COO, leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing at his lips. Bold call, Ava, as always. She met his eyes across the table. That's why I'm in this chair and you're not, Victor. The smile didn't reach his eyes. For just a moment, something cold flickered there, something that looked like hatred wrapped in silk. Then he nodded graciously and the moment passed. The board voted, 15-3 in favor of launch. Reeves gathered his files with shaking hands and left without another word. That evening, Ava stood in her penthouse apartment, a shrine to minimalist wealth. Glass walls, steel fixtures, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. She'd bought it for the view, 30 floors above the city, where people looked like ants and their problems even smaller. She poured herself a scotch and didn't bother with ice. Her phone lit up on the marble counter. The notification made her jaw tighten. 32 missed calls. All from Dad. She swiped it away and drained her glass. Her father's face appeared in her mind unbidden, weathered, kind, with hands calloused from 30 years of factory work. She remembered her college graduation, how out of place he'd looked in his one good suit, beaming with pride as she accepted her diploma. He'd driven 8 hours to be there. You're going to change the world, sweetheart, he'd said, crushing her in a hug that smelled like Old Spice and coffee. Just don't forget where you came from. She'd promised to call every week. Visit on holidays, stay connected. That was 18 years ago. Now his calls went to voicemail. His birthday cards sat unopened in a drawer. She told herself she was too busy building an empire to maintain relationships that served no purpose. Results over feelings. That was the rule that got her here. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from Victor. Board's happy. Stock will jump 12% at tomorrow's opening bell. Well played. She didn't reply. Instead, she stared at her reflection in the dark window, a ghost of a woman floating above a city that never stopped moving. Somewhere below, 4,000 people waited for heart valves that might save them. 3% of them would die because of what she just approved. She poured another drink. Ava left the office at 11 p.m. Her driver had called in sick, so she drove herself, something she did maybe twice a year. The parking garage echoed with her footsteps as she approached her Mercedes, heels clicking against concrete. She didn't notice the small device attached to her brake line. The rain started as she merged onto the highway. At first, just a drizzle, then sheets of water that turned the road into a river. She should have slowed down, but she had a 7 a.m. meeting and needed sleep. The bridge stretched ahead, suspended over the East River. That's when she pressed the brake pedal and felt nothing. Her heart lurched into her throat. She pumped the pedal. Nothing. The car accelerated on the downward slope, engine roaring, 80 miles per hour, 90. Oh God. She gripped the wheel with both hands, trying to steer, but the rain made the road slick as oil. The guardrail rushed toward her. She had 1 second to think. This is how I die. Then impact. The car punched through the barrier and sailed into darkness. Weightless. Falling. The water hit like a hammer. The windshield spider-webbed. Icy river water exploded through every gap, flooding the car in seconds. Ava screamed, but water filled her mouth. She tore at the seatbelt, but her fingers were numb. Useless. The pressure crushed her chest. Her lungs burned. Above her, through the broken windshield, she could see the surface, so close, impossibly far. Darkness crept in from the edges of her vision. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Don't forget where you came from. Then nothing. She woke to the steady beep of machines. Hospital, white walls, the smell of disinfectant and fear. Her throat felt raw, scraped, every breath hurt. She tried to move her legs. Nothing happened. She tried again, concentrated on her toes, her ankles, her knees. Nothing. Panic exploded in her chest. She gasped, and the machines went wild, beeping frantically. A nurse rushed in, followed by a doctor with kind eyes and terrible news written all on his face. Miss Laurent, you're very lucky to be alive, he said gently. You've been unconscious for 4 weeks. The impact caused significant spinal trauma. We've done everything we can, but my legs. Her voice came out as a croak. I can't feel my legs. The doctor's expression confirmed her worst fear before he even spoke. The swelling around your spine has decreased, but the damage, we're hoping with intensive physical therapy, you might regain some function. But I need you to understand, it's going to be a long road, maybe months, maybe years, and there are no guarantees. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Maybe. Ava turned her face away and said nothing at all. Victor visited the next day, bringing flowers she didn't want and sympathy she didn't believe. The whole company is devastated, he said, settling into the chair beside her bed. He looked impeccable as always. Tailored suit, silver hair, perfectly styled. The board held an emergency meeting. We all agreed that you should focus entirely on recovery. No stress, no work, just healing. What does that mean? Ava's voice was flat. It means I'll step in as interim CEO. Temporarily, of course, just until you're back on your feet. He smiled at his own word choice, realized his mistake. I mean, until you're ready. How thoughtful of you. The company is your legacy, Ava. We'll protect it. He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. Get some rest. Take all the time you need. After he left, she heard him in the hallway, voice low on his phone. She won't be a problem much longer. Trust me. 2 weeks later, they transferred Ava to a private rehabilitation facility 3 hours north of the city. The Riverside Center sat on 20 acres of wooded land, hidden from media vultures and curious eyes. It looked more like a luxury resort than a medical facility, until you saw the wheelchairs, the parallel bars, the patients struggling to relearn movements their bodies had forgotten. Ava hated it immediately. Her room overlooked a small garden where autumn leaves drifted across manicured paths. She sat in her wheelchair by the window, staring at nothing. They dressed her in comfortable clothes, soft pants, a loose sweater. She felt like someone else wearing her skin. A knock at the door made her turn. Miss Laurent? A man entered, and Ava's first thought was that he looked nothing like the physical therapists she'd imagined. He was in his mid-30s, with deep brown skin, kind eyes, and the sort of calm presence that felt almost aggressive in its steadiness. He wore simple scrubs and carried a tablet. I'm Noah Carter. I'll be your physical therapist. Get out. He didn't move. I know this is difficult. You don't know anything about me. Her voice turned to ice. I didn't ask for you. I didn't ask for any of this. So do us both a favor and leave. Noah pulled up a chair and sat down anyway, just out of her reach. His voice stayed level, unbothered. I've read your file. Spinal trauma, 4 weeks comatose, significant loss of motor function below the waist. You're angry. You're scared. You feel like your life is over. He paused. Am I close? How dare you? But here's what else I know. He leaned forward slightly. Your muscle mass is still good. Your reflexes show some response. The damage isn't complete, which means you have a chance. A chance. Ava laughed bitterly. To what? Shuffle around with a walker for the rest of my life? To be pitied? To be weak? To stand again? To walk again? To live again? Noah's eyes held hers, but only if you're willing to fight for it. Don't touch me. The words came out raw, desperate. Don't hurt me. I can't walk. I know, his voice softened. That's why I'm here. We'll start with what you can do. She wanted to throw something at him, wanted to scream until her voice gave out. Instead, she heard herself ask, like what? Can you lift your right arm? It seemed like such a small thing, pathetic even. But she raised her arm slowly, fighting against the exhaustion that came from 4 weeks of atrophy. Noah smiled, and it transformed his entire face. That's where we begin. Over the next 3 weeks, Ava learned to hate physical therapy with a passion that surprised even her. Every session was agony. Noah pushed her through exercises that left her gasping and shaking. Arm raises, core strengthening, balance work. Each movement felt impossible until suddenly it wasn't, and then he'd push her to the next impossible thing. Again, he'd say calmly when she collapsed back into the wheelchair. I can't. You can. 5 more. You don't understand what it's like. You're right, I don't. His voice stayed maddeningly even, but I know what giving up looks like, and that's not you. She hated him for that. Hated his patience. Hated his calm. Hated the way he saw through every excuse and deflection. During breaks, she noticed things about him. The way his scrubs were worn but clean, the scratched watch on his wrist, the photo ID badge that showed a younger version of him, smiling wider than she'd ever seen him smile now. What happened to you? She asked one afternoon, exhausted on the therapy mat. Noah looked up from his notes. What do you mean? You look different in your badge photo. Happier. Something flickered across his face, grief, quick and sharp. That was taken 4 years ago. Different life. He didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. They weren't friends. This was just a transaction, his expertise for her money. But then, 3 weeks into therapy, something shifted. Noah had set up the parallel bars for standing practice. Ava gripped the bars so hard her knuckles went white. Her legs trembled violently beneath her, muscles screaming. I've got you, Noah said, hands ready to catch her. 10 seconds. You can do 10 seconds. I can't. Yes, you can. Focus. Breathe. 5 seconds. Her legs gave out. She collapsed back into the wheelchair, gasping. Good, Noah said. Good, I failed. You stood for 5 seconds. Last week you couldn't stand at all. He crouched beside her wheelchair, meeting her eyes. Progress isn't dramatic, it's small. Every day a little stronger. That's how we win. Something in his voice made her believe him. The next day, she stood for 7 seconds. The day after that, 10. And when she finally hit 15 seconds, trembling and sweating but standing, she felt something she hadn't felt since the accident. Hope. She looked at Noah, and for the first time in months, she smiled. A real smile, not the corporate mask she'd worn for years. Noah smiled back. There she is. That evening, Noah sat in his car in the staff parking lot, phone pressed to his ear. Mr. Carter, this is Allied Collections calling about account number. He hung up and dropped his head against the steering wheel. The bills were piled on his passenger seat. Electric, final notice. Hospital, past due. Rent, late fee applied. His father's cancer treatments had drained everything, and even with his salary, he was drowning. He thought about the diamond-studded watch he'd seen on Ava's nightstand. Probably cost more than he made in a year. Maybe 2 years. It would be so easy. She had more money than she could spend. He could ask for help, or, God forgive him, he could use his access to her files, her accounts, find some leverage. Noah squeezed his eyes shut and breathed through the temptation. No, he'd lost too much already. He wouldn't lose his integrity too. He started the car and drove to pick up his son. Eli was waiting outside the after-school program, backpack slung over one shoulder, drawing something in a small sketchbook. At 9 years old, he had his mother's eyes and his father's quiet intensity. Hey, buddy, Noah ruffled his hair. Good day? Fine. Eli didn't look up from his drawing. What are you working on? Nothing. That meant something, but Noah had learned not to push. Grief made his son close like a fist sometimes. At home, a cramped two-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that clanked, Eli did homework at the kitchen table while Noah made spaghetti. The pasta was 99 cents a box. Yeah, the sauce was on sale. They were 3 days from payday and counting every dollar. Dad? Eli's voice was small. Yeah, buddy? Did you pay the electric bill? Noah's hand stilled on the pot. I will. I promise. That's what you said last month. I know. I'm sorry. He turned to face his son. Things are tight right now, but we're going to be okay. Eli nodded, but his eyes said he'd heard this before. After dinner, after homework, after Eli finally fell asleep, Noah sat in the kitchen with the bills spread before him. Math that didn't add up no matter how many times he tried. On the wall behind him hung a photo from happier days. Noah, younger and smiling, his arm around a beautiful woman with warm eyes and natural hair styled in locks. Lena, his wife, Eli's mother. Gone 3 years now, and the hole she left still felt fresh. I'm trying, baby, he whispered to the photo. I'm trying so hard. The next morning, Noah arrived at work to find his supervisor waiting. Carter, we've got a situation. You'll need to come in tomorrow. You can bring Eli. Noah's stomach dropped. I can't. That's unprofessional. It's one day. Keep him quiet and out of the way. We're short-staffed as it is. So Eli ended up in the hallway outside the therapy rooms, sitting cross-legged with his sketchbook and colored pencils. Noah checked on him between sessions, feeling like he was failing at both jobs simultaneously. After Ava's session, she'd managed 20 seconds standing today. Noah was cleaning up the equipment when he realized Eli wasn't in the hallway. Panic spiked through him. Eli? Here, Dad? Noah followed the voice and found his son sitting on the floor near the rehabilitation garden entrance. And sitting beside him in her wheelchair was Ava Laurent. She was looking at Eli's sketchbook. You draw? She was asking. Yeah. Eli's voice was guarded. Can I see? Eli hesitated, then turned the page toward her. Noah saw Ava's breath catch. The drawing was of Lena, his late wife, Eli's mother. The boy had drawn her from memory, and despite his young hands, he'd captured something essential about her. The warmth in her smile, the life in her eyes. She's beautiful, Ava said quietly. She was the best. Eli's voice went thick. She died. I'm so sorry. Ava's corporate polish was gone. This was just a woman talking to a grieving child. What was her name? Lena. Lena Carter. Something flickered across Ava's face, but Noah couldn't read it. She looked at the drawing a moment longer, then handed the sketchbook back. You're very talented, Eli. She'd be proud of you. Later, after Noah had taken Eli home and returned for his evening rounds, he found Ava still in the garden. She had her laptop balanced on her wheelchair, and her face was pale. Everything okay? He asked. She closed the laptop quickly. Fine. Just tired. But Noah had seen the screen for just a second, long enough to see the headline, Local Woman Dies After Heart Valve Failure, and long enough to see the photo, his wife's photo. Ava stared at her laptop screen until the words blurred. Lena Carter, 34, died 6 months after receiving a Laurent Global Sentinel-7 artificial heart valve. Family members report she experienced complications within weeks of the procedure. Laurent Global declined to comment on pending litigation. The article was 2 years old, buried in local news archives. But the photo, Lena's warm smile, her kind eyes, burned itself into Ava's memory. She scrolled further. Found the valve model number, cross-referenced it with her company records. Approved for launch 3 years ago. Signed by Ava Laurent, CEO. Her hands shook so badly she had to close the laptop. The next morning, Noah arrived for their session and found Ava already at the parallel bars. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Let's start with arm stretches, he said. I want to try standing. We usually warm up first. I want to try now. Something in her voice made him pause. She looked fragile in a way he'd never seen before. Not weak, fragile, like she might shatter if he pushed. Okay, he said quietly. Let's do it. She gripped the bars. He positioned himself behind her, hands ready to support her weight. She pulled herself up, legs trembling. Good. That's good. Breathe. But she wasn't breathing right. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her whole body rigid. Ava, you need to. Shut up. Her voice cracked. Just let me do this. She held herself up for 5 seconds. 10. 15. Her face contorted with effort. 20 seconds. 25. Then her legs gave out. Noah caught her, easing her back into the wheelchair. She was shaking, covered in sweat, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "That was amazing," he said. 25 seconds is... Leave me alone. "Ava," I said, "leave me alone." Her voice echoed through the therapy room. Noah stepped back, hands raised. "Okay, we'll pick this up tomorrow." She didn't respond, just sat there staring at her useless legs, silent tears finally spilling down her cheeks. Noah left, but the weight in his chest stayed. For 3 days, their sessions were mechanical. She followed instructions without argument, but the spark was gone. She didn't joke, didn't smile, barely spoke except to acknowledge exercises. On the 4th day, Eli had to come to work again. Noah tried to keep him away from Ava, but during a break, he found them in the same spot as before, the garden entrance. This time, Eli was showing her a different drawing. Noah's heart clenched when he saw it. Their old house before they'd had to sell it. Back when Lena was alive and their biggest worry was whether to paint the shutters blue or green. "We used to live here," Eli was saying, "but we had to move after Mom died. Dad says the new place is temporary." "It's been 3 years." Noah had never heard Eli say that out loud before. Ava was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Eli, can I ask you something? I guess? Your mom, do you know what happened to her? How she got sick?" Noah's blood went cold. He stepped forward quickly. "Eli, time to go." "Dad, we're just talking." "Now, please." Eli grabbed his backpack, confused by his father's sharp tone. As Noah ushered him away, he looked back and saw Ava watching them, her face stricken. That night, Noah couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Ava's question, about the laptop article, about the way she'd looked at Eli. At 2 a.m, he got out of bed and did something he'd sworn he'd never do. He opened the box in his closet, the one with Lena's medical records, the lawsuit papers his lawyer had filed, the death certificate. He spread it all out on the kitchen table and read through it again, even though he'd memorized every word years ago. Cause of death, heart failure due to mechanical valve malfunction. Device manufacturer, Laurent Global Biotech. Model Sentinel-7 artificial heart valve. Approved by Office of the CEO. His hands clenched into fists. He'd spent 3 years trying to get justice. The lawsuit had gone nowhere, buried under Laurent Global's army of lawyers. Eventually, his lawyer had advised him to settle for a pittance and move on. "These corporations always win," she'd said. "I'm sorry." So he'd taken the money, barely enough to cover Lena's funeral and medical bills, and tried to forget. But he'd never forgotten who signed off on that valve. Ava Laurent. And now she was his patient. Now she depended on him. Now she smiled at his son and asked him about his drawings, and Noah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Rehab room 3. Please, we need to talk." He should have deleted it, should have gone back to bed. Instead, he threw on clothes and drove back to Riverside. The facility was quiet at night, just security lights and the distant beeping of monitors. Noah used his staff key to enter. Ava was in therapy room 3, sitting in her wheelchair in the darkness. "You know," she said without turning around. It wasn't a question. Noah stood in the doorway. "Yes." "How long?" "I saw the article on your laptop. Before that, I didn't know." His voice was flat. "I didn't connect Ava Laurent, the patient, with the CEO who killed my wife." She flinched like he'd struck her. "I didn't kill her." "You approved a valve you knew was unstable. 3% failure rate, wasn't it? Lena was in that 3%. His voice rose despite his efforts to control it. "You chose money over safety. My wife died gasping for air in a hospital bed while I held her hand and our son cried in the hallway. She was 34 years old. I didn't know." Ava's voice broke. "I didn't know her name. I didn't know about your son. I didn't know any of them." "That's supposed to make it better?" "No." She finally turned to face him, and in the dim light he could see tears streaming down her face. "Nothing makes it better. You're right. I chose profit over people. I told myself the math worked out that more people would be saved than hurt, but I was lying to myself. I just wanted the win. The stock price jump, the board's approval." She drew a shaking breath. "Your wife died because I was too arrogant to wait, because results mattered more than feelings, because I thought I was smarter than everyone else." Noah wanted to yell, wanted to rage, wanted to shake her until she understood the magnitude of what she'd taken from him. Instead, he heard himself ask, Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. Because I can't look at Eli without seeing all the other children who lost parents because of my decisions. Because, her voice dropped to a whisper, because I'm so sorry, Noah. I know sorry doesn't bring her back. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that I would give anything to undo what I did. Silence stretched between them, heavy as a stone. Finally, Noah spoke. You don't get to ask for forgiveness. Not from me, not when you bought it with people's lives. I know. I should quit. I should walk out of here and never come back. I know, but I won't. The words surprised him even as he said them. Because unlike you, I actually care about people more than my own feelings. You need help, and I made a commitment to help you walk again. His voice turned hard. But we're not friends. This is just a job, nothing more. Ava nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. Noah left without another word. In the parking lot, he sat in his car and wept for the first time in a year. For the next week, their sessions were silent except for clinical instructions. Lift your left leg. Hold for 10 seconds. Again. Ava followed every command without complaint. She pushed herself harder than ever, as if punishing her body could atone for her sins. Noah watched her drive herself to exhaustion day after day, and despite his anger, part of him, the part that had chosen healing as a profession, wanted to tell her to stop, but he didn't. Eli stopped coming to the facility. Noah made other arrangements, borrowing money he didn't have to pay for after-school care. One afternoon during a water break, Ava spoke. The first non-clinical words in days. I filed for permanent resignation from Laurent Global, sold all my shares, started a foundation. Noah didn't respond. It's called the Lena Carter Memorial Foundation. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. For families affected by medical device failures, I'm using my personal full fortune to fund it, to compensate people, to push for better safety standards. She paused. I know it doesn't fix anything, but maybe it prevents the next family from losing their mother, their wife. Noah set down his water bottle. You named it after her. If that's too much, if you want me to change it, why? Because she deserves to be remembered. Because Eli deserves to know his mother's death meant something. Because, Ava's voice cracked, because I need to do something right. Noah studied her for a long moment. This woman who'd once commanded boardrooms and destroyed lives with a signature. Now she could barely stand without support. Now she cried over a child's drawing. Now she wanted to build something instead of just taking. I can't forgive you, he said quietly. I don't know if I ever can. I'm not asking you to. But he ran a hand over his face. I think maybe you're trying to become someone who wouldn't make that choice again, and that has to count for something. A tear slid down Ava's cheek. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We've still got work to do. He held out his hand. After a moment, she took it, and he helped her back to the parallel bars. That night, news broke across every channel. Laurent Global CEO Victor Hale had called a press conference. He stood at a podium in a perfectly tailored suit, looking grave and concerned. It is with deep sadness that I must inform you of serious negligence during Ava Laurent's tenure as CEO, he said. Leaked documents flashed on screens behind him, internal memos with Ava's signature approving the Sentinel-7 valve despite safety warnings. Miss Laurent knowingly approved a dangerous medical device that has resulted in hundreds of deaths. While she recovers from her unfortunate accident, the board has voted to permanently remove her from all positions within Laurent Global. The media erupted. Questions shouted over each other. Camera flashes like lightning. Victor raised a hand for silence. I want to assure the public that Laurent Global is committed to transparency and accountability. We will cooperate fully with all investigations. Ms. Laurent's actions do not represent our company values. The headlines wrote themselves. Laurent's lies. CEO's greed kills hundreds. Ava Laurent, from boardroom to disgrace. Families demand justice after Laurent's scandal. In her room at Riverside, Ava watched the press conference on her laptop. She saw her career destroyed in real time, saw her reputation shredded, saw herself transformed from a powerful CEO into a villain, and the worst part, she deserved it. A soft knock at her door. Noah stood there, his phone in his hand. I saw the news, he said. She nodded, unable to speak. It's not the whole truth. His voice was careful. What he's saying about you, it's true. But there's more to this story, isn't there? Ava looked at him surprised. What do you mean? I mean, men like Victor Hale don't suddenly grow a conscience. There's an angle here. Noah stepped into the room. What do you know about him? He was my COO for 8 years, brilliant strategist, ambitious. She stopped. I always thought he was loyal. Or maybe he was patient. Noah pulled up a chair. Tell me about the car accident. Do they know what caused it? Brake failure. Police said it was suspicious, but couldn't prove sabotage. And who benefits most from you being out of the picture? The pieces clicked together in Ava's mind. Victor. So maybe, Noah said slowly, we need to figure out what he's really hiding. Ava stared at Noah like she was seeing him for the first time. Why would you help me? After everything I've done to you? Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, because people deserve justice. Real justice, not just revenge. And because, he hesitated, because I think you're trying to become someone who wouldn't make those choices again. Maybe that starts with holding the right people accountable. Even if I'm one of those people, especially then. Over the next 2 days, they worked in secret. Ava used her remote access codes, ones Victor didn't know existed, to dig through Laurent Global's files. Noah helped organize what they found, his methodical mind perfect for sorting through corporate chaos. What they discovered made Ava's blood run cold. Project Lazarus. A series of unauthorized medical trials on terminal patients, promising miracle cures. The patients had signed away their rights, desperate for hope. Most had died. All records had been falsified, and every decision had been pushed through by Victor Hale. He used my digital signature, Ava said, staring at the approval documents. These are dated 3 years ago, before I even became CEO. He forged them. There's more. Noah pointed to a spreadsheet. Look at the stock transactions. Victor purchased massive shares right before the Sentinel-7 launch. His options were set to vest the week you approved it. He pushed me to approve it. The memory crystallized. In the boardroom, I thought he was supporting my decision, but he was manipulating me. He'd already falsified the safety reports to make them look better than they were. So you made a bad call, Noah said, but he set you up to make it. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, but it means he's not the hero he's pretending to be. A soft knock interrupted them. Dr. Marcus Reeves, the scientist from the original boardroom meeting, stood in the doorway. He looked older, more worn than Ava remembered. Miss Laurent, I need to talk to you. Ava wheeled herself toward him. Dr. Reeves, I owe you an apology. You were right about the valve and I didn't listen. I appreciate that, but that's not why I'm here. He pulled out a USB drive. I've been collecting evidence for 2 years. Everything Victor has done, the falsified reports, the illegal trials, the bribery. I couldn't bring it forward while you were CEO because he'd made it look like you approved everything. But now I have nothing left to lose. Ava took the drive. Why now? Why help me? Because 47 people died in those trials, because hundreds more died from faulty devices, and because Victor just promoted himself to CEO, which means he'll do it again. Reeves's voice shook. I became a scientist to help people. Instead, I watched my work get twisted into something monstrous. If I don't speak up now, I'll never be able to live with myself. Noah plugged in the drive. File after file of damning evidence filled the screen. This is enough, Ava said quietly. This is enough to take him down. But who'll believe it coming from you? Noah asked. You're already convicted in the court of public opinion. Then I'll make them believe. Ava's voice hardened with something Noah recognized, the steel that had built an empire. But this time it wasn't being used to destroy. Victor's holding a shareholders meeting tomorrow. He's expecting me to hide. Instead, I'm going to show up. You can barely walk, Noah said. Then I'll go in a wheelchair. She met his eyes. I spent my whole life caring about appearances, about being strong and untouchable. Look where that got me. Maybe it's time to show people the truth, all of it. The good, the bad, and the broken. The next morning, Ava dressed carefully, not in a power suit, but in simple clothes. She left her hair down. No makeup to hide the exhaustion on her face. No armor to hide behind. Noah insisted on driving her to Manhattan. You don't have to do this, she said in the car. I know. Victor will destroy me up there. Maybe. Or maybe people are ready to hear the truth. They arrived at Laurent Global headquarters at 9:30. The shareholders' meeting was scheduled for 10. News vans crowded the street. Reporters surged forward when they recognized Ava, shouting questions she didn't answer. Noah helped her into the building, one hand steady on her wheelchair. They took the service elevator to avoid more cameras. At the boardroom floor, they could hear Victor's voice through the doors. Confident, commanding, playing the role of savior. And I assure you, under my leadership, Laurent Global will return to profitability within 2 quarters. The mistakes of the past are behind us. Ava pushed open the doors. The room fell silent. 18 board members turned to stare. Victor's face went pale, then red. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I'm still a shareholder," Ava said calmly, wheeling herself to the front of the room. "I have a right to be here." "You have no authority." "I'm not here for authority, Victor. I'm here for the truth." She looked at the board members, recognizing faces she'd known for years. Some looked away, others leaned forward, curious. "You all know what I did. You've seen the headlines. I approved a dangerous device. People died. I own that. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." "Then why are you here?" one board member asked. "Because the story you've been told is incomplete." Ava pulled out the USB drive. "Victor didn't just expose my negligence, he orchestrated it. He falsified safety reports to make the Sentinel-7 look safer than it was. He forged my digital signature on documents approving illegal medical trials, trials that killed 47 people. And he did it all to manipulate stock prices and seize control of this company." Victor's laugh was sharp. "This is desperate, even for you, Ava. You're trying to deflect blame. I'm not deflecting anything. I made terrible choices, but you made calculated ones." She looked at Noah, who handed her a tablet. "I have bank records showing your stock purchases, communications between you and regulatory officials, falsified lab reports with your digital fingerprints all over them." She displayed the first document on the boardroom screen. "This is an approval for Project Lazarus, dated 2 months before I became CEO. My signature. Except I never signed it because I wasn't authorized to sign anything yet." Murmurs rippled through the board. No, Victor's composure cracked slightly. "This is fabricated evidence." "Dr. Reeves compiled it." Ava's voice cut through his protests. "He's prepared to testify. So are 3 other employees you thought you'd silenced with NDAs and severance packages." "None of this changes what you did," Victor said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "You're right. It doesn't." Ava looked directly at the cameras she knew were streaming this meeting. "I approved a device that killed people, including a woman named Lena Carter. She was a wife, a mother. She was 34 years old. Her son draws pictures of her because it's the only way he can keep her memory alive. I did that. My arrogance, my obsession with winning, my belief that I knew better than everyone else, that killed her and hundreds of others." Her voice broke, but she pushed on. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for accountability. Real accountability, not just for me, but for everyone who put profit over people, including you, Victor." She pressed a button. Victor's voice filled the room, a recording from the night of her accident. "She won't be a problem much longer. Trust me." Another recording, this one from the boardroom 3 years ago. "The stock will jump 12% at opening bell. Approve the valve, Ava. We can't afford delays." Email after email flashed on the screen. Evidence of bribery, falsified documents, illegal trials. Victor stood frozen, trapped. "You tried to kill me," Ava said quietly. "You sabotaged my brakes, and when I survived, you used my injuries to take everything I built. But you forgot one thing, Victor. I didn't build this company by being stupid. I built it by being thorough." Security entered the room. Behind them, 2 police detectives. "Victor Hale, you're under arrest for fraud, bribery, and attempted murder." Victor's face contorted with rage as the handcuffs clicked shut. "You self-righteous hypocrite. You think this makes you the hero? You're just as guilty as I am." "I know," Ava said. "That's why I'm resigning permanently, effective immediately. I'm stepping down from the board, selling my remaining shares, and dedicating my entire personal fortune to the Victims Foundation." She looked at the cameras again. "Laurent Global needs leadership that actually cares about people. I'm not that person. I don't know if I ever will be, but I can try to do better." As Victor was led away, he spat one final threat. "This isn't over, Ava. There are things you don't know, things that will destroy you." The doors closed behind him. Ava sat in her wheelchair, suddenly exhausted. The board members began arguing among themselves, but she couldn't hear them anymore. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation drained away, leaving only emptiness. Noah's hand touched her shoulder. "You did it." "No," she whispered. "We did." 3 weeks later, Ava sat in a small office overlooking a community health center. The space was nothing like her old corner office. No mahogany, no expensive art, just practical furniture and walls covered in photos of the families the Lena Carter Memorial Foundation had helped. Victor was in custody, awaiting trial. Laurent Global had appointed new leadership and was cooperating with federal investigations. The media had moved on to the next scandal. And Ava was learning to walk. Not just physically, though Noah's therapy continued, but learning to walk through the world differently. She grocery shopped in small stores where people sometimes recognized her and glared. She took public transit and endured the whispers. She volunteered at the foundation, meeting families face to face, listening to their stories of loss. One woman spat at her feet. Ava stood there and took it without flinching. "I understand," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." The woman walked away, still angry, but something in her shoulders looked lighter. Eli started visiting again. At first, just for a few minutes, then longer. He'd bring his drawings and show Ava, and she'd ask questions that showed she actually cared about the answers. One afternoon, he asked, "Did you really kill my mom?" Noah started to intervene, but Ava raised a hand. "I didn't mean to," she said honestly, "but I made choices that led to her death. I was careless with people's lives, including your mom's, and I'm so sorry, Eli." "Sorry doesn't bring her back." "No, it doesn't." Ava's eyes filled with tears. "But maybe I can make sure it doesn't happen to someone else's mom. Would that be okay?" Eli thought about it for a long time. Then he pulled out his sketchbook and showed her a new drawing. It was a mosaic, broken pieces of a plate rearranged into something beautiful. "Mom used to say you can't unbreak a plate," he explained, "but you can make a mosaic. Something new from the broken pieces." Ava looked at the drawing and started to cry. "Your mom sounds like she was very wise." "She was." Eli hesitated, then added, "I think she'd like what you're trying to do." It was the closest thing to forgiveness Ava had ever received, and it broke her heart and healed it simultaneously. 6 months after the press conference, Ava stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment and studied herself. Not the penthouse she'd once owned. She'd sold that along with everything else. This was a modest 2-bedroom in a regular neighborhood where children played in the street and neighbors knew each other's names. She was wearing running clothes, simple leggings and a t-shirt with the foundation's logo. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. No diamonds, no designer labels, just her. She bent down slowly and tied her sneakers. 6 months ago, she couldn't even feel her legs. Now she was training for a 5K to raise money for medical ethics reform. The progress had been agonizing. Every step forward felt impossible until suddenly it wasn't. Her left leg still dragged slightly when she was tired. She couldn't run fast or far, but she could run, and that was everything. "You ready?" Noah called from the doorway. She turned and smiled. Over the months, something had shifted between them. The anger had faded into understanding. The professional distance had warmed into friendship. And lately something else, something neither of them had named yet, but both felt in the lingering glances and accidental touches. "Ready," she said. They met Eli outside. The boy had grown taller in 6 months, his smile coming easier now. He'd started calling Ava by her first name instead of Miss Laurent. It felt like progress. "Come on, you guys are so slow." Eli jogged ahead, full of 9-year-old energy. Noah laughed. "Save some for the actual race, buddy." They ran through the park as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Ava's pace was slower than the others, her gait uneven, but she kept moving. Noah stayed beside her, matching her rhythm. "You're doing great," he said. "I'm barely jogging." "You're jogging. 6 months ago, that was impossible." He glanced at her, something soft in his expression. "You've come a long way, Ava. We both have." They ran in comfortable silence for a while. Then Noah said, "Eli asked me something last night." "What?" "He asked if I liked you. Liked you. Noah's ears went slightly red. His words, not mine. Ava's heart stumbled. "What did you tell him?" "I told him." Noah slowed to a walk, and she matched him. "I told him that I do. that I didn't expect to, that I fought against it for a long time because of everything that happened. But, her voice came out barely above a whisper. But you're not the same person who made those choices. You've faced what you did. You've tried to make it right. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing the CEO who killed my wife and started seeing... He stopped, searching for words. Seeing you, just you. Ava felt tears prick her eyes. I don't deserve. Don't. Noah's voice was gentle but firm. Don't tell me what you don't deserve. I'll decide that for myself. Eli ran back to them, oblivious to the moment. Why'd you stop? We're supposed to be training. Ava laughed, wiping her eyes. You're right. Come on. They finished their run together, the three of them, and Ava thought about Eli's drawing. Broken pieces rearranged into something new. That evening, Ava returned to Riverside Rehabilitation Center. Not as a patient this time, but to thank the staff who'd helped her. She walked through the therapy room where she'd first stood, trailing her fingers along the parallel bars. Noah found her there, lost in memory. Remembering? He asked. Everything. The anger, the fear, the first time I stood and thought I might actually survive this. She turned to him. You taught me how to walk again, Noah, but not just with my legs. What do you mean? You taught me how to walk through the world differently, how to face people I've hurt, how to rebuild from nothing, she took a breath, how to be human again. Noah crossed the space between them. You taught yourself that. I just held the door open. Then thank you for not letting it close on me. They stood close, the air between them charged with possibility. Noah's hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her cheek gently. Is this okay? He asked. Yes. He kissed her softly, carefully, like she was something precious that might break. She kissed him back, tasting forgiveness and hope and second chances. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I love you, she whispered. I don't have the right to say it, but I do. You have every right. Noah rested his forehead against hers. I love you too. Eli's voice echoed from the hallway. Dad! Ava! Come on, we're going to be late for the movie. They laughed and pulled apart, but Noah caught her hand. He's bossy, Ava said. Wonder where he gets that from. Noah grinned. They walked through the facility together, hand in hand, talking about small things. What movie Eli wanted to see, where they should get dinner, whether the foundation needed more volunteers next week. Normal things. Beautiful things. The kind of life Ava had never thought she'd have. 3 weeks later, the foundation hosted its first major event, a community health fair offering free screenings and medical consultations. Ava had worked herself to exhaustion preparing for it, determined to make it perfect. The day was a success. Hundreds of people showed up. Families laughed in the park. Children played while their parents received care. For the first time, Ava saw the tangible good her money could do when directed by conscience instead of greed. As the sun began to set, casting everything in golden light, she stood with Noah and Eli near the parking lot, watching the last families pack up. You did good today, Noah said, slipping his arm around her waist. We did good, she corrected. Eli was showing them his drawing from the day, a picture of all three of them standing together, smiling. For the foundation office, he explained, so people know who we are. It's perfect, Ava said, her throat tight with emotion. They walked toward Noah's car, the three of them tired but happy. The evening air was warm, filled with the sound of crickets and distant laughter. Ava felt peace settle over her like a blanket. Then her phone rang, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct maybe, or dread made her press accept. Hello? Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then a voice, distorted and mechanical, filled her ear. Ava Laurent? Her blood turned to ice. She stopped walking. Noah noticed immediately, his hand tightening on her shoulder. Who is this? She asked, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. Someone who knows what you did before Laurent Global, before the Empire, before you became untouchable. The world seemed to tilt. Ava's mind raced back 15 years to a small laboratory, to choices she'd buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself they never happened. I don't know what you're talking about, she managed. The distorted laugh sent chills down her spine. Project Siren. Does that name ring any bells? The parking lot faded. Suddenly she was 25 again, standing in a sterile lab wearing a white coat, staring at a monitor displaying vitals that were crashing. a woman's scream echoing down a hallway. Her supervisor's voice, "We bury this. All of it. Do you understand?" And she'd nodded. She'd helped falsify records. She'd accepted the promotion that came after. She'd built her entire career on that silence. "You think you've paid your debts, Ava?" The voice pulled her back to the present. "You haven't even scratched the surface." The line went dead. Ava stood frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, staring at nothing. Her carefully rebuilt life felt suddenly fragile, like glass about to shatter. "Ava?" Noah's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Ava, what's wrong? Who was that?" She turned to look at him, this man who'd taught her to walk again, who'd chosen to love her despite everything she'd done. And Eli watching her with those two wise eyes, the boy who'd shown her how to make mosaics from broken pieces. She'd finally found something real, something worth protecting. And now her past was coming to destroy it all. "Ava?" Noah stepped closer, concern etched across his face. "Talk to me. What's going on?" She opened her mouth to answer, but no words came. How could she explain that the redemption she'd fought so hard for was built on another lie? That before Laurent Global, before the Sentinel-7 valve, before any of it, there had been something worse, Project Siren, and this time Ava wasn't sure she'd survive the landing. To be continued in Part 2, The Reckoning. If this story gripped you, if Ava's journey resonated with your own battles between who you were and who you're trying to become, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button and drop a comment below. What do you think Project Siren is? What did young Ava do that's even worse than what we've already seen? Subscribe now because Part 2 is coming, and the secrets Ava buried 15 years ago are about to explode. Will Noah still stand by her when he learns the full truth? Can their love survive another devastating revelation? And who is the mysterious caller determined to destroy everything she's built? Share this story with someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible, but also that sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. The truth always has a way of finding you, no matter how far you run. Part 2, The Reckoning, coming soon.